Hi everyone, Enrico Lopez-Yañez here, Principal Pops Conductor of your Nashville Symphony, here to talk to you a little bit today about our upcoming concerts presented in tribute to Don Williams. And I have a very special guest here with me. Joining me is Robert Pratt, longtime manager and longtime friend of Don Williams. Thank you so much for being here with me.
It's a great pleasure, great pleasure.
So, I mean, you spent decades with Don, working with him, and I'm really curious sort of how the career started, your connection with him began. How did you discover and come across Don, and how did that become a partnership that led so successfully?
This goes back to 1989. I did a European tour for Tammy Wynette, and very successful tour, very successful. And her husband said to me, who else would you like to tour and promote? And I says, well, what about Don Williams? What about Crystal Gale? So George, Tammy's husband, said, yeah, I can put you in touch. So he did. He put me in touch with, first of all, Don. And we did our very, very first tour with Don in Europe in 1990. We did something like 18 concerts and sold every ticket clean. And from that, we ended up at the very end of the conversation with the last night. We agreed to do another tour the following year. Mm-hmm. So we did it. And again, the last night we're sitting chatting away. This was 91. And jokingly, I'd said to him, so now that we've captured Europe, where else would you like to play? Maybe not the right thing to ask at the time, because, he says, well, I've never been to Australia, I'd love to go to Africa, and I've never been to India. And I'm thinking, geez, Australia didn't know anybody, India definitely didn't know anybody, and Africa the same. So, not wanting to look, as though I didn't know, I said, sure, no problem, let's see what we can do. So we then went on, and I continued right through the 90s and 2000s doing all these UK tours. I became his manager at that point. We did our first Australian tour in 1994. We did our one and only Africa tour in 1997. We went back to Australia a couple of times. Sadly, never got to India. But from the very early 90s, we struck up such a bond, mm-hmm. because we had taken care of him and his wife, taken care of the tour. Everything was good to exactly everything he wanted, because he had little, like most artists, some things that he was a bit pernickety about. Mm-hmm. So we continued. We never let anyone else. My office in the UK, but this time I'd moved to live in America. Mm-hmm. My office in the UK still continued to promote all these shows, right up until the very last tour we did, which was in 2014.
And I mean, Don had such a huge expansive career, so successful. I mean, of course, being inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame and so many hits and singles. What do you think it was about Don and his music that people loved so much, that made him so special?
I think, first of all, one point that was very surprising was, like, Don was bigger out of America than he was in America. For instance, in the UK and Ireland, he was like a superstar, mm-hmm. megastar. When we went down to Africa, we'd filmed it down there, and when we came back, my colleague at PBS did a special, because we wanted to show the people here in America just how big a star he was. He was a star here, but we wanted to show how big a star he was out of the country. Mm-hmm. The fans seemed to connect with his songs, because he was a man who loved lyrics. He enjoyed a good melody, but the lyrics was very, very important to him. The songs that he wrote was pretty much based on true life. something that had happened in his life. A lot of these songs have that kind of meaning, and it seemed to touch people in many different ways. You get people who are getting married who remembers the first song, and it was a Don Williams song, or there's maybe unfortunate things happen in their life where that song has brought, a particular song has brought them solace. We used to get many emails from fans telling us this song or that song and what it meant to them. And I think it all seemed to come down to his beautiful voice, the beautiful delivery, and more importantly, the wonderful lyrics that had that touching meaning.
Right. And our audience is going to get to experience that in a very unique way, getting to actually hear Don's voice and visually see him in concert with us. Can you tell us a little bit about what the audience can expect to see on these concerts?
Definitely. This, when I was first approached about this, the whole idea was so exciting. He'd never ever performed when he was alive with an orchestra, and his music lends so much to having an orchestra there. And so when we were approached, we thought, oh, definitely, and I hope he's looking down on us with happiness. So once we got the invitation, we then started looking back at all the footage that we owned. Now, he was never a man for doing many interviews. There's not huge amount of footage. It's not like Elvis, who has got mountains of the stuff. He was a shy man, very introvert, and never really participated in being filmed or going on television shows. So we went and researched everything that we had, and we have some brilliant footage from what we do have, where we shot some footage in Branson, Missouri in the early 90s. In 97, when we were down in Africa, we filmed the whole experience, not just the concert. We've got footage of him being presented with in front of, I think it's something they reckoned, in excess of 10,000 people, the honour of the city. So we filmed that in 97, and then we filmed in Ireland in 2014. So we had really good, strong footage, and we thought, yes, this could make a really interesting show. And when we thought of the title, Don Williams, the music and memories of the gentle giant, with the Nashville Symphony, we thought, God, this is just too much. So for the past couple of months, on and off, I've been spending time in Kansas City in the studio editing it all to get to the point where it's ready for the public's eyes.
And I think it's going to be so exciting having Don's voice and him there in video with his band and our symphony all collaborating together. I mean, how can it get better than that?
It does. I mean, I think that's just phenomenal. The icing on the cake, in addition to that, is we were so fortunate and lucky to have Keith Urban curate the show. Keith was a huge Don Williams fan, and Don really respected Keith as an artist. So the two of them got along really well. And when I asked Keith and told him of what we were thinking of doing, he actually asked, how can I be part of it? Right. So I said, well, it just so happens that could you do this? Not a question. Right. What do you want me to do? I will be happy to do it. So Keith is curating it. So that's brilliant. Great introduction to the evening. With, as I say, with Don on the screen, but with his voice, and of course our own band playing live along with the orchestra. I think it's going to be a super wonderful night. We have some inserts which I'm sure the fans and of not just Don but the fans of the orchestra is going to really enjoy seeing.
Absolutely. Well, I am so looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to seeing you and the band and all of you in the audience October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd for our fabulous show featuring the music of Don Williams.
Well, from our side, we can't wait. Wished it was tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
We're so excited.